good evening, good day. Where
Whichever
is
time zone.
where is Eddie Murphy? I guess he left already. Anyway, I would like to welcome you back to the Brain Dead Sports Podcast here with the great and informative Chris, and of course yours truly,
Good
Ron, which is
evening, good
ironic
day.
because you have no idea who I am. But anyways, we're back again to discuss sports. We're going to cover a wide variety of topics today, but primarily on the CPL games, the past performances of the past week, as well as football, unfortunately. So we'll start off by discussing Raheem Dream Cornwall's century versus the St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots.
Jimbo.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on Cornwall in general, Chris? Prior to the 100.
Honestly, I don't really have much to say except I think he's a bit underrated simply because of his weight. But yeah, I think he gained some negative lights with regards to his running in I think it was the first game for the Royals.
Uh,
So from there, I don't think people rated him, but he can strike the ball as cleanly as anybody when he gets going, and that was on full display the other day,
mhm.
and it led to a great 100. I don't really have much to say. I was just in awe of the performance.
Yeah, I mean, the game that you're referring to is against the St. Lucia.
St. Lucia, St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots, yeah.
No, no, the
Who?
runout. The runout was against St. Lucia, I believe,
The
in which
runouts, yeah,
he,
yeah,
yeah.
against St. Lucia.
Well, what I would say is that okay, in relation to regional cricket, I have no problem with Cornwall
Hmm.
participating because at the end of the day, regional cricket, the franchise cricket scene is more about um, who the individual franchises want to represent their brand and who they think would
Hmm.
be best fit um, to win them the trophy. So if they believe that Cornwall is an asset, then I would never object to Cornwall playing. However, I could understand the fans' backlash when Cornwall seemingly was incapable to run or did not put in the effort to run that single and potentially cost his team the game because it's clear that their batting lineup is very much dependent on Cornwall to perform. However, I would say that personally, I wouldn't want Cornwall or someone with Cornwall's weight to play at the international level due to the intensity of the game and the stakes of the game. But in terms of franchise cricket, it's no issue. However, when it comes to striking the ball, as you rightfully said, there aren't many people in the region or in the world that can strike the ball as cleanly, as hard, and as far as Raheem Cornwall, and that was on full display. I think that his 100 was actually well paced. It was not like he was trying to hit every delivery out of the park. He picked the balls and I mean, I guess it's a bit unfortunate that he seems to be incapable of continuing, at the back end of the game. But it goes to show that
Hmm.
even though he's only capable of these cameos, a cameo for him could result in 100. So it's clearly an asset.
True.
And in the event that the Warriors make the Final Four, he would definitely need to be one of their better batsmen. And of course, he bowls every game. So he's essentially playing as an all rounder. So
Yeah.
he's definitely an asset. But on the Royals as a whole, how do you think their batting lineup has been performing? Or are you disappointed?
Honestly, I was on fraud watch the entire week because I remember the last episode I had the Royals as one of the favorites to probably best us.
Yeah,
Us meaning the Guyana Amazon Warriors, but
yeah,
I think the last performance, well, not the last one, but the one where Cornwall got his 100, it seemed to show a bit of fight, especially with Powell coming down at the end and striking the ball pretty well. But right now, the Royals seem to be a one-man team. They need one man to either perform or they don't. Whether that one man is Powell or Athanaz or Cornwall. But
yeah.
I don't see a lot of, the entire team coming together to get them over the hump, whether it's chasing or defending. Their bowling doesn't look too strong at the moment. The only bowling that looks weaker is the Patriots, the team that they beat the other night. So right now it isn't looking too good for them. But there's still a lot of cricket to be played, and I think I think maybe it's not too late for them, especially seeing how well some of their players can strike the ball.
Well, I would say that their lineup is probably one of the more explosive lineups in the tournament in
Mm-hmm.
terms of okay, the
True.
ability to score fast. There's Cornwall, the captain, as well. Rothman Powell. There are players like Kyle Mears who could strike the ball well. There's also people in the back at the back end like Jason Holder and so forth. But I believe the issue with the Barbados Royals currently is that they lack an anchor in the team that is going to guarantee that they're going to bat through the innings at least going striking at like let's say 110 to 135 like a Shea Hope or
Mm-hmm.
somebody like that who's going to bat through the innings. So when one power hitter goes out and comes in, there's still somebody keeping the scoreboard ticking. I think
Mm-hmm.
maybe they're too dependent on a player like Athens, who's not that experienced at the international level or in franchise cricket. So I think that's
Um,
a big issue
mhm.
for them currently.
Honestly, I think in one of the games, I can't remember against who it was, but I thought I saw a bit that kind of maturity from Athena's batting through the innings and playing his shots. So would you like to see him maybe come in a bit earlier and actually try to anchor that innings, which is something you say they seem to be lacking?
I mean he's already batting at 3 or 4. The problem is though is that
I think the
when
last game he came in at around 5,
but
didn't he?
the problem
Mm-hmm.
with their lineup currently is due to the well in the last game Mears got 70 odd runs, but before that, I'm pretty sure his high score
Mm-hmm.
was maybe even in the single digits.
Yeah.
The problem is that
Mm-hmm.
Cornwall prior to the 100 was not scoring either, so they had two openers who would go in the power play, which put
Mm-hmm.
pressure on the youngster. And then you would have
Mm-hmm.
persons like Rothman Powell, who even though they are capable um, of of striking the ball. They're not. You probably would prefer them to come in the last six
Yeah, to be
to
like a finisher.
yeah 7 overs. You don't want to give them. It's like if you have Andre Russell batting at in the power play every game. Sure, it might come off for you occasionally, but it will not be effective in the long run. But I do believe and this is my true belief that the team does on paper have a certain level of talent that they could perform,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to batting. But I do believe the key is actually Kyle Mears because maybe Cornwall might not be capable of giving that kind of performance every game, but based on Kyle Mears' pedigree as a cricketer, as a West Indian cricketer, a West Indian opener, who plays all formats for the West Indies, he should be scoring or averaging at least 35 runs in the CPL.
Agreed.
That's the bare minimum you should be asking from him. And I think he's the one that's actually putting pressure on the batting lineup because the
Mm-hmm.
team is not getting that start coming out of the power play. You need to have at least be striking at 10, let's say on a bad night 9, but at least 10
Mm-hmm.
and a great night 14 runs coming out of that first 4 5 overs. You if you could do that for your team, even if you don't last through the innings, you would give the cushion to Atanas and Powell, who will come in and
Mm-hmm.
carry them to the end.
Great. I just want to go back to your comments on Cornwall at the international level. I actually wasn't thinking that far ahead, but
Mhm.
wouldn't you think he would maybe succeed in like a finishing role at the T20 level? Um, given how well he strikes the ball at times.
Well, here's my belief on that. Well,
Hmm.
the that's actually a good question because Cornwall, I do not believe, at least I can't remember how many T20 um internationals Cornwall has played or if he has played, but I do remember he made his debut for the West Indies in the Test arena. Now,
Hmm.
the thing with Cornwall is in T20 cricket, it's possible that he may come in and, as a matter of fact, he has not played any one days or T20s for the West Indies. But in a T20, it's theoretical that he could come in and strike, let's say, at 200 odd and score a quick 30 or something in the back end of the innings. The problem is, though, is that T20 cricket also requires you to be explosive in the field. If you look at players like
Hmm.
Faf du Plessis
True.
or
True.
Ravindra Jadeja or even a Kohli, those are people who you don't want to hit the ball anywhere near them. Even if our own Kimo Paul or Shimra Hetmaya or Nicholas Puran, these are people who are explosive. You wouldn't want to put your team in a position where every game you bring someone into bat, but then you have to hide them when they're feeling
In the
because
field.
so that's the drawback back of
Even
having.
Rutherford may be higher on the list there, you would think,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I would say most because there was a period of time in which Hayden Walsh Jr. was playing a lot of games for the West Indies. He didn't get a lot
Yeah.
of wickets and he was not particularly economical, but he saved a lot of runs in the field. So even though Cornwall has a safe pair of hands, the range in which his hands are going to go, is not quite far. So that's my main issue with Cornwall when it comes to international cricket. I also believe that it's not fair if a player like Shimra Hetmaya could be left out of numerous games, important series
I
because of
agree.
fitness purposes, but then you
Hmm.
would give exceptions to players like Cornwall who never showed the caliber of batting that Hetmaya showed at the
Or ability
international
in the
level.
field.
Yeah, so I think that's a slippery slope. It's different if you have a player like Chris Gale who would have scored
Hmm.
thousands of runs in all three formats for you
Consistently, yeah.
across decades, and then at the back end of his career when he got back injuries and so he was not capable of being that explosive as he used to be when he was young in field. You can make that exception for somebody who's going to come in and for sure give you uh, at least a century per series. And in reality, Chris Gale would have made that single that Cornwall did not make in the game that started the controversy. But as I said, in when it comes to regional cricket and franchise cricket, I have no problem with him playing and
Hmm.
showcasing his talents. It's unfortunate that maybe he's not capable. Like I
Do you
don't
think we'll
necessarily
see another explosive performance from him?
I expect at least another one, but not a century. I also expect a
Hmm.
game in which he's going to get at least 3 to 4 wickets to the ball because he is
Hmm.
that capable a
Yeah.
bowler. But I would expect maybe a 70 from him before the tournament ends. Hopefully, it's not against us.
I was just about to say that, yeah. Because that playoff game last year still haunts me.
Yeah.
But anyway, keeping on topic with the CPL, we have the greatest rivalry in the competition. You know, the curry
The
chicken versus chicken
chicken
curry
curry.
matchup.
Yeah.
Chicken curry once again prevailed.
Yeah.
So, thoughts on the game?
Well, first of all, it's an interesting rivalry. So there's always a lot of build up in both countries. There's a lot of
Hmm.
banter, most of it in good spirits, and there's even banter between the players and so on. However, in this particular game, maybe for the first half, it lived up to expectations because Trinidad got out there and they put up a defendable total, I would say. Not
I think it was a very
necessarily.
competitive total.
Yeah, it was a competitive total, as
Yeah.
Akil Hussein had said. It was a total that you
Hmm.
could back yourself to defend, which was 172 for eight. But I do believe there wasn't a point in the game. post after the point in which Hope was given out and it was overturned, I don't believe there was a point in the game in which Guyana was truly in danger. However,
Hmm.
Trinidad did get let them off the hook by dropping a few catches in the field. However, I do believe it was a comfortable victory for the Warriors because they didn't lose a lot of wickets and they were essentially just cruising through the game. But what I will say is that I expect to see this matchup again, and a lot of things could change. For instance, Nicholas Puran could go off, and
Hmm.
he's probably the most explosive batsman in the West Indies right now when it comes to just
He
the
was
ability.
starting to look very dangerous if it wasn't for a moment of brilliance from Azam Khan, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah. So it's a case where that variable could shift, but I also believe players like Kimo Paul, Hetmeyer, who Kimo Paul didn't even bat, and Hetmeyer, who seem to be toying around a bit, are also capable of not to
Hmm.
the extent of Puram, but a similar level of explosive fireworks. And I do believe that when Garbaz gets here, it's possible. So I do believe this is actually one of the harder matchups to predict. I think in terms of age and fitness, Scan is a younger, fitter team. But
Hmm.
when it comes to experience, Trinidad is the more experienced team. But I do believe
Yeah.
that all things considered on their day, given Guyana's bowling attack, they should be able to Trinidad. But it would be Trinidad, but it wouldn't surprise me in the future if it does not happen. That's what I saw in the game because there were instances where Trinidad could have probably clawed them back a bit. But
Hmm.
I do believe that in order for Trinidad to beat us, either Russell, Pollard, or more likely Nicholas Puran would have to go very big. And even if they go really big in terms of 200, 210, I still think it could be a competitive game given how deep the Warriors batting lineup is.
I think Russell's actually seems to look a bit fit to this tournament,
Yeah,
um,
I'd agree.
especially with the ball. So I think that's going a bit unnoticed, but he seems to be playing very well again, especially with bowling. But the bat leaves much to be desired, I would think, especially for Trinidad right now,
Yep.
because in two games I think they depended on brilliant performances from Puran and Goptil.
Hmm.
So I think as a unit, I mean that's the game, right? Sometimes you need to just depend on one player, but
Hmm.
as a unit, I think they could do a lot better.
Yeah.
However, I'd like to focus on the Warriors mostly. What do you think about Tahir only bowling Moti two overs?
Well, I guess it all depends on the matchups. I do remember in the was I believe I believe it was the first CPL final when Guyana played the Jamaica Tallawahs. In that tournament, Rasami Pramal was either if he was not the leading wicket taker, he was the leading wicket taker for the Guyana Amazon Warriors. This might be the first or second edition of the tournament. I can't remember clearly, but I do remember in that game they avoided bowling him as long as possible because Chris Gale was at the crease. And because Hussain
Mm-hmm.
Pramar was a left-handed spinner, they did not want him to bowl to Chris Gale, who had the reputation of demolishing left-handed spinners. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a case where maybe it was a tactical decision, maybe based on the batsmen in the TKR lineup. Maybe they were trying to avoid bowling bowlers that would play into their strengths. But I'm not sure what the decision is. But I would like to say that Moti is probably one of the most skilled spinners when it comes to sheer wicket
Mm-hmm.
taking. He's not necessarily the best at restricting, but in terms of
Mm-hmm.
just getting wickets, Moti is um, definitely wonders. But I do believe they would probably avoid bowling him to Puran or any other left hand batsman with
I
that kind
can't
of.
remember the batsman at the crease when he had his 2 overs remaining. Puran, I know for sure, was already out. But I do remember the moment thinking, why not bring back Moti at least for 1 over, maybe
Uh-huh,
sacrifice one of Pretorius's overs
uh-huh.
because he ended up going, I think, for over 20 from the last two that he
I
bowled.
what I will say that's I'm glad you brought that up, and we will go back to
Mm-hmm.
Moti. Pretorius. Pretorius is probably the weakest link in the team currently because
He has been bowling well in the power play to his credit, though.
yeah, he has been going well in the power play
Just
this guy,
coming down
but
to the end.
I feel like his performances have have been have avoided criticism due to the fact that one, the team is not losing, and two, early on people criticized Odin Smith heavily, they criticized Hemraj heavily. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like there was, he was the best of the worst and good enough to not, escape criticism. But currently in our side, when Gorbaz is here, and I'm not sure how many overseas players we would be allowed to play, but
Mm-hmm.
if Gorbaz is in the lineup, and you remove either Hemraj or whoever, he might be the weakest link, and I would not be surprised if there's an instance in a later game where a bowler goes for an like an extreme amount of runs. It's likely to be him based on the bowlers that we have. However, as you rightly said, in the power play, he has not been that bad, and we do need um, seamers. It won't be
Mm-hmm.
possible for us to just bowl a team of spinners, even though
Yeah.
the Sinclairs seem to be losing out as a result.
Any thoughts as to why Kevin Sinclair hasn't gotten any game time? I know Junior has, but Kevin seems to be missing out. And he's a player who's represented us at the international level. So, thoughts on that?
The weird thing is, I'm pretty sure last year Kevin Sinclair was not selected by the Guyana Amazon Warriors, but
I
Junior
think he was a
Sinclair was.
Patriot, yeah.
Yeah, but he was not selected in the initial auction. I believe a Patriot got
Mm-hmm.
injured. So for some reason, it
Yeah.
seems as though the regional cricket selectors, as well, I should say the franchise cricket selectors, are not. They don't fancy Kevin Sinclair to the extent as the West
Mm-hmm.
Indies Cricket Board does. But
Yeah.
I've never seen anything from Junior Sinclair that would suggest to me that he's better than Kevin Sinclair, to be honest.
Same here.
The only advantage he has is height, which is not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily beneficial for a spinner. So
Mm-hmm.
it's all about how he utilizes his action. However, it could be a case where once again it's a matter of style, what kind of bowlers they want, how many, but I'm not sure what goes into that what that decision. But personally, I would be playing Kevin Sinclair um over
Mm-hmm.
Junior Sinclair.
Yeah. You mentioned Hemraj earlier as being one of the weakest links of the team, and I know we tend to criticize him a lot, but he I think was one of our best fielders, if not the best fielder the other night.
Mm.
His batting leaves much to be desired still, but in the field, I thought he was superb.
Yeah, but I don't believe in a tournament that we struggled to win. Um,
Mm-hmm.
for how many years it is now, 10 years, that you could afford to pick someone because they performed well in the field. And personally, my issue with Transport Hemorrhage that when Transport Hemorrhage came onto the scene at the international level, he went to India and he drew comparisons due to his high backlift and his style to Brian Lara. And
Mm-hmm.
okay, fine, that's not a favorable comparison to any young batsman, especially a left-hander. However, I think he's one of the cricketers that has been given ample chances to prove themselves and has not truly lived up to expectations, and it's unfortunate given his age. Even though it's not too late, but still, it's unfortunate. I do believe he's the type of batsman that is capable of going off, in, but it's it. I wouldn't be surprised if Guyana makes it to the finals and that's the one game he performs in. But would you really want to risk playing someone
I
over
don't
and
think
over again?
Hemraj will. I don't think Hemraj will be in our best lineup once Gorbas comes back. To be honest,
True, true, but
like you said, it depends on how much international players we're allowed to have. Depends on
yeah,
who's on farm, things like that. But going off of what you said about left-handers being compared to Brian Lara,
mm,
um, I just want to talk about Shimron Hetmeyer's performance. I think so far he's been having a decent tournament, but I was a bit disappointed the other night that he didn't, close out the innings for us.
yeah.
I think he should have had that composure to just see it through to the end, but he ended up giving away his wicket a bit too easily for my taste.
I actually think I agree with you that Hetman has been having a decent tournament. He has some good scores and as well as some, not so good ones. And I believe he's been excellent in the field so far. But I got the impression last night that Hetman was playing the way he was playing because he was operating on the assumption that it was impossible for us to lose.
I
And
do think he did his job of lowering the required run rate, but I think it's just because of how much I demand from Hetty. Since
yeah,
I've seen his talent, I've seen what he's capable of. So I guess that's just me being a bit hard on him, to be
I agree
honest.
with you, but I would have preferred if he had stayed to the end, not just
Hmm.
because to see out the game, but it shows that you've matured, and it would also show his critics that he has matured. I would agree.
Yep.
It's always better for you as a batsman, a senior batsman, to see out the game. But at the end of the day, I guess it's a matter of all's well ends well. In the event that we had somehow lost the game, I'm sure he would have garnered a lot of criticism, and it would have been earned
Hmm.
on his part. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't see but he could have done better. But speaking of finishing the game, as Khan has been brilliant
Hmm.
as a wicket keeper, and in terms of finishing the game the last time we played against
Yeah, he was great all around, especially that catch off Nicholas Puran
yeah,
just when he was starting to look dangerous.
yeah, that was actually a brilliant bit of wicket keeping.
Hmm. Definitely. And speaking on Nicholas Puran, he had a great bounce back game.
Yeah, well, though the well, like you could say that Puran and the Trinbago Knight Riders had a great bounce back game
Hmm.
against the Royals, but then it's kind of hard to judge performances versus the Royals recently. However, it's one thing I will say about Puran is that he's probably the cleanest striker of the ball in the West Indies, and I think for his size. It's absurd how hard he hits the ball, how far he hits the ball. Because when he hits something, it goes way beyond the boundary. He doesn't hit flat sixes. Those are some massive sixes he hits.
Hmm.
And he never looks tired
Yeah.
hitting these massive sixes. He looks a lot like JP Duminy in terms of his batting style. But
Hmm.
damn, that innings was actually I enjoyed watching that innings. Like as a neutral cricket fan and a West Indies cricket
Yeah.
fan, I actually truly enjoyed that innings because it was some beautiful cricket shots in there.
If you're a fan of ball striking, that was the perfect innings to watch.
Yeah, yep. And he was rotating the strike. He wasn't just trying to slug every ball. He even
Hmm.
like played some far defensive strokes against the good deliveries, even in the last over. But that was actually a brilliant 100. But we would definitely need to address the incident which caused him to remain at the crease.
That was, I don't even know what words to use to describe that moment. It was just hilarious for me watching.
I mean, I here to be honest, I was actually in the kitchen. I was frying some potatoes, and I heard my mother scream, and I was like, I walked in TV, and I was like, what is going on? And then she was like, a big mix up, with Puran and Pollard, and of course they argued, but they seemed to iron it out by the end of the game. But I
Mhm.
actually, it's actually quite interesting that the only reason Puran wasn't run out was due to Pollard's own lack of game
It was
awareness,
so
because
amazing though because Pollard, he seemed to just, shut off and be like, okay, yeah, we're not taking this single anymore. But in that time frame, Puran's speed really impressed me because he was just able to run across his crease so fast.
yeah.
Like,
Here, what I would say is that if it was Puran and Puran batting, sure, that was a single, but it probably was not a single for Pollard. So I think
Mhm.
Puran probably should have taken that into consideration before darting down the pitch. However, it would have been Pollard's call, and Pollard should have probably sent him back before.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
it's interesting that Pollard's bat was actually hovering over the crease before Puran got in there, and Puran's foot got in the crease before Pollard could actually down his bat. So the only reason that Puran got over the line is because Pollard did not focus on downing his bat, which is basic cricket. But at the same time, he was probably just
The
focused on
script
the
was
fact
just
that
written for him to have that night, I guess. Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. The script was written for him because he had already walked down to the boundary. He had already assumed he was out because logically you would think that Pollard would down his
yeah.
bat before you get there. So, and I'm 90% sure that Pollard would not have scored 65 runs, much
I
less
think
a
actually
century.
that delay from Cornwall as well probably played a factor
Yeah,
because
be,
maybe I don't know if Pollard was in at first and then he decided to hover his bat.
yeah,
I didn't see that part of the replay, but maybe if Cornwall hadn't been so surprised initially, maybe it would have been a stronger debate as to who was out.
yeah, yeah. Because in the end, it didn't really turn out to be close.
Hmm. Yeah.
But what do you make of the general game in terms of the game's competitiveness and so on?
I honestly didn't think it was too competitive once Barbados lost Mayers. He
Yeah,
seemed to be going good, and then after his dismissal, things just fell apart from there.
yeah.
Oh no, it was a good display from TKR, both with the bat and with the ball, I would say.
So, all things considered, does that mean you will retract your Barbados stake, or do you want to wait until they play Guyana first?
Honestly, I'll wait. I'll wait because I don't want to jinx anything. I would say yeah, the team is terrible, and then next thing you know,
Yeah, they smash
I'm
Guyana
not taking that
in
chance.
Trinidad. So, well, the upcoming
Speaking of the
fixtures,
game, though,
yeah,
yeah, continue. Sorry.
yeah, the upcoming fixtures are, well, Saturday, the St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots are playing St. Lucia Kings. And then later on that day, on Saturday, you have the Trinbago Knight Riders versus Jamaica Talwas. Then Sunday, you have the Barbados Royals against our Amazon Warriors. And then they close out that leg of the tournament, I believe, with Trinbago Knight Riders against the St. Lucia Kings. So I guess we could start off with the Patriots and Kings on Saturday, which in these are two teams that are well at two different
On
ends of
opposite
the
ends of the
table,
table.
because the Kings are going along quite not great because they had a lot of games right now, but they haven't lost the game, which is interesting. Just
Mhm.
rain. And the St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots have not won a game since the undefeated versus the defeated.
Mhm. Yeah. So, who's your pick?
Well, the St. Lucia Kings are a dangerous team. I
Mhm.
think they've made some recent additions to their squad. Uh, they, I do believe that I'm not sure which team Alex Hales is playing for. If he's playing for the Patriots or the Kings, but I have a
I
feeling that
can't
he's
remember
playing
myself.
for for the Kings. However, winning is like a disease and losing is like a disease. When a team builds momentum, even when they don't
Mhm.
bring out their A game, they have a tendency of winning. And given the momentum that the Kings have, I do believe it's possible that they will, straight up steamroll, um, steamroll the Patriots. However, on paper, the Patriots have a very good team. It's just a matter of executing on the day.
The bowling, I think leaves much to be desired,
Yeah, I mean,
in my opinion.
this is a team that has won the CPL before. It's a team with winning
Hmm.
pedigree, albeit they had both Evan Lewis and Chris Gale in their pomp on that team at a time, but now they have the likes of Anthony
I don't
Fletcher.
think the Patriots have Gale at the time when they won their first.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
yeah,
because
I think it's
I think their first was when Bravo came, right?
that's actually a good question.
Yeah, I think their
Um,
first was when Bravo came, and when Bravo came over, I'm not sure if Gale was still there. Because I do remember Bravo being the captain, if I remember correctly.
well, now we need to check the winners. How many titles does the Kings
The Kings don't. I don't think the Kings have any titles.
no, sorry, not the Kings, the Patriots. Sorry,
The
yeah, the Kings
Patriots, I
are like
believe,
a
is the Patriots. I think have one. Is it one? Yeah, I believe they have one.
okay. Well, the Patriots won for the first time in 2021, and this was at
Hmm.
Warner Park.
Yeah.
Um, Now, I guess the easiest way to find out who won would just to check the scorecard of the final.
Yeah.
Wow, this was an uneventful final. The Kings, well, actually, no, it was very eventful. Sorry, the Kings won, lost by 1 run. But
Hmm.
this team did have Chris Gale, who got bowled by Roston
Oh,
Chase for a duck in the
okay,
final,
okay.
and Evan Lewis got out for six. Strangely
Hmm.
enough, Joshua De Silva and Dominic Drakes were the high scorers.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
it was an interesting final. Raheem Cornwall was the top scorer for the Kings with 43.
The Kings.
So yes, the St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots did win with Dwayne Bravo and Chris Gale. So
And Chris Gale.
we
Hmm.
were both correct on that front. But I do believe their current team has Colin Monroe, so I'm not sure which team. Maybe Colin Monroe's on the Kings. I'm not sure which team Alex Hales is on. If it's on the Patriots or Kings, but he's an extremely explosive batsman.
If
Uh,
I'm if I'm being honest, like the only player that I've been looking forward to was is the one coming to my team,
um,
Gorbaz.
Gorbaz,
Yeah, that's the only one I'm really looking forward to. But anyway,
but
what's the next game on Saturday?
um, the next game on Saturday is the Knight Riders and
The Talawas.
yeah, I believe so. Yes, the
All
Night
right.
Rising Star was at 8 p.m.
I think my pick for the day would be I'll go with the Guyanese bar in Shafin Rutherford. I'll
Hmm.
actually back the Patriots for this one.
Yeah.
Um, it's probably the unpopular bet, but I'll go with the Patriots.
Well,
And
actually,
for the
Alex, he was just
evening
playing for
game,
the Talawas. That's who he's playing for, the Talawas. Yeah.
yeah. So in the evening, TKR are our rivals, so I'll never bet on them. So I'll be picking the Talors.
Okay, well, that's a very brave bet, picking the team with number five versus the team in second. Well, now we go on to the big, well, not necessarily big, but in terms of
Big for us.
historical rivalries, you could see that it would be big, but it's not big right now. I mean, this was once a finals matchup, but currently the Barbados Royals are not
Where
living
we
up
were
to.
robbed. But anyways,
Yes,
that's a story for
but
another time.
yep. I will. That's one of my worst teenage experiences. Nonetheless,
Same. I
Barbados
hated
was.
Barbados for like the next 3 seasons.
I hated Pollard mostly because of that, but it is
True.
what it is. But yes, the
But like
Barbados
I just
Royals.
associated him with the team, so
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
I think
like
until
it's
he left,
synonymous.
then is
Yeah,
when I transferred all of my hatred to TKR.
yeah, that's understandable indeed.
Hatred in a cricketing sense, that is,
Yes,
not
yes,
on a
yeah.
personal level.
Yeah. But
For our two viewers out
the
there.
yes, yes, or hopefully soon to be dozen. But the Royals and the Warriors. Now, once again, I would be genuinely surprised if the Warriors lose this game given the performances thus far by
Mhm.
the Royals. But anything is possible. I mean, it's a new venue. Um and who knows what might happen. But I would say obviously I would give the edge to the Warriors. What's your take?
Well, you don't even need to ask me to be honest. With or without Gurbaz, I'll take the Warriors. But especially if Gurbaz plays on Sunday, I think we're the overwhelming favorites.
Yeah,
Even though he isn't coming on the best of form, his last three ODIs, he hasn't really scored anything high. But
yeah,
prior to the last three, he did have that magnificent 151 against
yeah.
a good Pakistan team.
Hmm.
So I think on paper, he's definitely our best batsman, and I look forward to seeing how he performs throughout the tournament.
Yeah. Well, maybe the climate will aid his performances.
True.
Well, I guess that's it for the CPL. Now we'll take a long ferry ride over to the UK, where we'll
Hmm.
discuss the Premier League. So, first off, we need to discuss Tottenham Hotspur, the perennial bridesmaids of the Premier League in terms of every single tournament, whether it's the Champions League final, the Premier League title when they had the likes of Ericsson in his prime, Kane, Dele Alli, and Son. Whether it's FA Cups, etc., etc. This team seems to be incapable of crossing the line, and I would have assumed that they would have hit the wall when Harry Kane left. But no, they've started the season with a new manager, undefeated. So, how do you feel about that and their recent performances?
Honestly, I think Madison has been very great. I think he's been a great signing so far.
Yeah.
Son seems to have returned to form,
Mm-hmm.
and I think their midfield is just working very well right now, and
With
Romero is doing well,
Bissouma and so
and
on.
their
Yep.
fullbacks.
Yep.
So yeah,
Um.
I think Tottenham could be genuine tight, maybe not title contenders. I think it's a bit too early in the season to say,
Mhm.
but they've definitely been performing well so far.
I would say that the only reason I would not say, well, the two reasons why I say they wouldn't be title contenders. One is squad depth, and two, it's the
Hmm.
how the the time in the season. However,
And
one thing I
past
will,
experiences with Tottenham.
true, the team is clearly cursed. But one thing I will say about Tottenham is that they surprised me in the sense that I thought they probably would have played very poorly in the first five games and then maybe improved over time. But I was just they're the real standout here. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say he's been their best player per se, but Madison is a standout for me because near the end of last season, less when Leicester was relegated, you had players like Yuri Tielemans, Jamie Vardy,
Mhm.
and Madison, who everybody who is a fan of the Premier League or a fan of football in general would agree are players that do not deserve to be playing in the championship.
Hmm.
However, there was no hurry to sign Madison on the part of numerous Premier. He was linked to Aston Villa, I believe, West Ham. I mean, I personally would have taken him at Manchester United. But if you compare Madison to a player like a Mason Mount or even a Jack Grealish, players who, when they were in their former clubs, Mount maybe 2 seasons ago at Chelsea, Grealish at Villa, they almost ascended to like the darlings of English football, like these players who were
Yeah.
in the World Cup squad starting for
Hmm.
Southgate, while Madison was not even in the World Cup squad. And I always thought that he was a similar level to them in terms of ability.
Yeah, I
I
always
think,
thought he was great, to be honest.
and now I believe you're seeing it that he's finally in a team that is not relegation level. You're seeing
Hmm.
that he's capable of because his performance against Manchester United was exceptional in my opinion. It actually
Hmm.
was disheartening because you saw the difference between him and somebody like a Mason Mount, like the level of creativity, the level of passing.
There was a point in time where Mason Mount exhibited similar levels, but I don't know what's happened to him lately. He
Um,
just seems to
I
regress.
there's a possibility that we just got caught up with the fact that Mason Mount, uh, as you would say in the NBA, you had a great rookie season because nobody knew you and what you could do. But
Hmm.
then you had this sophomore slump when defenders learned all your tricks, your maneuvers, and they viewed your tapes. So it could be a possibility that Mason Mount is now going through that sophomore slump and he needs to now learn how to adapt to the defenders who have learned to adapt to him. But Tottenham
Hmm.
have been great. I mean, barring injuries, I would expect them to do well and continue to do well.
At
I
least
do,
contend for that European spot, you would think, right?
yeah, and at least take points off of the teams that we would have initially thought would
Hmm.
have made it to the top four. I mean, they've already taken 3 points off Manchester United and deservingly so.
Yeah, I agree. On the topic of Manchester United.
Yes, well,
Anyways,
at the weekend, United, who is still my team,
sadly.
faced Arsenal at the Emirates, and I would let me just say this going as a quick disclaimer. The first game of the season, Manchester United player expected us to beat Wolves, maybe 1-0, because Wolves always seems to play way better against Manchester United than any other team. But I expected to win, and we got that 1-0. But we looked
Did
way
you start the
worse.
season 4-0 against Wolves just a while ago?
Yeah, but if you look at our record, though, we have
Hmm.
probably the most single and maybe
Oh,
two
okay.
nil,
Hmm.
yeah, victories against
Yeah.
them because they're not a team that attacks. So it's not a case where they're gonna allow you to just hit them for six. But we were way worse. I did not expect this to be that bad. Our midfield looked porous. It looked like a sieve. And
I
then
like
when
how
we
we can talk
went
about
to
one game and you just start analyzing all the Manchester United games before that one game.
no, because
Anyways, continue.
I'm trying to add context to this take that I'm about to give. This elite
Yeah,
level
yeah,
take.
go ahead.
Against Tottenham, we were outplayed man to man by every single Tottenham player. They were just looked the better team, and once again, our midfield looked like a sieve. Now, going into that game, based on what I saw before, I was like, yeah, we're going to lose. Because one, I think even if Manchester United was playing at the level as they were playing last season, we probably still would lose to Arsenal if they were playing at the level as they were last season away, because our away form has been poor. Now, first 45 minutes of that game goes by, United probably have about 1% more possession. And you can say that Arsenal maybe is a slightly better team, and the game is drawn due to a moment of brilliance by Rashford and a team goal by Arsenal. come the first
Do you
maybe
really
20.
think Arsenal is only just a slightly better team than Man U at the moment?
No, they're a considerably better team. I'm saying in terms of the game, how the
Hmm.
game was being
Oh
contested,
yeah, yeah.
they were
Yeah, yeah,
slightly
yeah.
better. Now, the
Yeah.
first 20 minutes, the possession switched. Man, you had 41% possession. However, in that 20 minutes, United did more with their possession. And there was like a series of plays in which United, if Rashford had just passed the ball or done anything other than shoot, that we probably could have taken the lead again. But I was like, I'm not going to gain too much hope because I know our bench is thin. And as this game goes on, there are players like Trossard who could come on for Arsenal to make a difference. There are Vieira and these other midfielders that they could bring on to make a difference. But when Hoyland came on, he was bullying Gabriel, which was interesting because the guy's 20,
He was
and
great when he came on.
then you
Definitely a
had
bright spot.
yeah, and then there was the offside goal, and I would say the second before that goal scored, or the seconds preceding to that play, I thought United probably is going to draw this game, and Arsenal would be happy to get that draw because they weren't the better team in the second half up to that goal. When that goal scored, I thought it was offside. I wouldn't even lie to you. Like, I didn't even celebrate that goal because I was like, the defense looked a bit too open for that to be. But then on the replay, you see how close it actually was. But in real time, I thought the goal was
Hmm.
offside. So I didn't really celebrate it. But the moment that goal was actually ruled offside, I knew we were going to lose because the last time we were at the Emirates, the game was 1-1. United were pressing Arsenal. The crowd seemed to be silent. Then some one of our players went and taunted the crowd or some crap, and the crowd went ruckus, and Arsenal got this energy out of nowhere, and then boom, we lost 3-1. The same thing happened this time. The boost that they got from that goal being the offside, I think everything fell apart. And I think the difference was is that the last time we were beaten off of them just being brilliant, more energetic. This time our defenders are getting injured like there's no
Yeah.
tomorrow. Uh,
Honestly, it was just incompetent defending to leave Rice on mark like that, to be honest.
and I know a lot of people blame Onana for that goal. You shouldn't be getting, you should be saving things on your near post. But if we're being objective,
And who was the
Rice should
defender?
Rice
Who was
should not
supposed to
have
be
that shot.
defending there?
Exactly, Maguire, Maguire, and and Evans was not fouled. However, Evans is having such a poor game since he came on. I think he was trying to not make another defensive error. So you just try to go down and hope that the referee would blow the whistle, which is not. I actually think that the way they capitulated actually annoyed me a lot. And the thing that actually annoyed me the most was that Dallo dribble because Dallo was probably our best player that entire game. Like his far post defending was
Hmm.
brilliant on crosses. He
Yeah, he
kept
was
Saka
solid.
quiet, and it's crazy because Saka is one of the best wings in the world, and Dalot is a right back and at left back.
Hmm.
But I knew that guy was going to become a meme after that goal scored, which in anybody who's ever played football knows that if Dalot did not slide, they would have scored anyway. Like there was
Yeah,
no
on that side,
circumstance
yeah.
in which that was not going to be a goal. That was always going to be a goal from the inception. The fact that he even put in the effort is a plot,
Hmm.
but he became a meme. So Dalot was playing well, became a meme. All of our defenders are
Simply just
injured.
a case of good offense trumping good defense, I guess.
Yeah,
It
I
was a
feel like
last ditch attempt, and
yeah,
yeah,
that
he just
game
had to live with it.
in the moment that game hurt because we played well and then we lost and I knew we were going to be bantered for losing because of the games we played before. But in terms of our actual
Actually,
performance, I don't actually think we played poorly. We played probably slightly worse than Arsenal, and I think Arsenal were not at their best on the day. I think Ten Hag actually executed a great game plan to neutralize Saka, to neutralize Martinelli, to neutralize. I think the one player that was not neutralized was Odegaard, and I do believe if we had Amrabat, which is due to the Glazers, that he probably would have done a better job against him than
isn't he
nobody.
signed though? Like, what more y'all want?
No, he
He's
was not.
coming.
He
Come.
was. Don't forget, he's been coming since like like May. But ultimately, I do have hope. But the injury crisis is actually a genuine concern. Like I don't know how we could have 8 injured players in a month. That's crazy.
I think I have a slightly different perspective. Um, I don't actually agree with the fact that you think that Manchester United played a bit decent. I do think Arsenal was a bit off, but for Man U, like, what really is the game plan? I get that you want to be a counter-attacking side, you want to press from the front, things like that. But at some point, you need to be able to build from the back. Now, I understand that you don't have the defenders to do that, but that's just a problem with the squad in general. I think Ten Hag has actually done very poorly in getting the right players for his team. Uh, it's supposed to be a pressing team, but your midfielders, who are your midfielders? Who are your forwards who are supposed to buy into this pressing philosophy? You have Anthony, Rashford. Rashford can press. Hoyland looked very good pressing from the front when he came in, and your midfield is Bruno. Bruno is a hard worker, but the other midfielder, Ericsson, Casemiro, and you actually saw that weakness with Ericsson, especially with the equalizer that came just after Rashford's moment of brilliance, where
Yeah, he had no legs.
I think Ericsson did it had just left Odegaard open, and we know how good Odegaard is striking the ball. So that was very poor. So I do disagree with the fact that you think that United played a decent game. I don't think they were able to, execute their game plan as well as Ten Hag would have wanted, given his whole counter attacking pressing philosophy that he seems to trying to make these players buy into.
Well, here's what I would say, right? In terms of building from the back, Onana did have the second most passes in the game.
Yeah, and
And
he is the only one attempting to do that, and you
but
can't just have your
and
keeper
in
do it.
all fairness, Martinez before he was injured was trying to build from the back. But in
Mm.
terms of recruiting the players to play in that playing style, we did try to get Kim and Jay, and we just did not. And that's not Ten Hag's fault. If Ten Hag gives the persons responsible for transfers, the director of football, whoever, Richard Arnold, and these people, a list of players.
Mhm.
He wanted, from what we know of, he definitely wanted. Um,
I think the player chose Byron's project too. I think that had a
yeah, but we were
factor in it.
also not willing to compete financially because we don't have any money. But anyway, so we did not get Kim and Jay.
You
We
see,
did not.
pause. I don't understand that, right? Because the amount of money you spent on, like you're not willing to compete financially. Because the amount of money you spent on Mount, first of all, the amount you spent on Highland, the amount you spent on Sancho a few years back, the amount spent on Bruno. I
Well, but
think you are
Bruno
willing
was
to compete.
actually a bit of a steal. Bruno was like 45 million at the time, and the
But
dividends.
I think given the market situation at the time, it was a bit high for a play in the Portuguese league, to say the least. And
Maybe, but
I think, yeah, continue, sorry.
what I would say is that in this specific transfer window, we knew we were limited due to financial fair play. The fact that we spent so much money the season before on players like Anthony Casemiro and so on is the reason why we could not spend because we spent over
Yeah,
the
Anthony is another
financial
player I
fair
forgot.
play limit. But this season we were limited. Now I do agree.
Mhm.
Now I've never rated Mount. I always thought Mount was a passion merchant like Scott McTominay, just slightly shorter and more skilled than him, but nonetheless a passion merchant, a discount version of Frank Lampard with quarter the talent. However, that is one thing I will always hold against Ten Hag that he signed him because that is his signing true and true. That's one signing which we know he wanted. It's not a signing that was a substitute signing for somebody that he wanted. It's not like uh oh he did not get Kim and Jay, so we got Johnny Evans. It was literal. You did not get anybody. We also know he wanted Rabiot. Now, and one thing I would say about Rabiot is when we were first linked to Rabiot last season, people were like, "Oh my God, Rabiot is cheats." Then Rabiot was like one of the best midfielders in the Serie A. So by the time we took to not sign Rabiot, Rabiot ended up signing back with Juventus because obviously Juventus now sees Rabiot's value that Ten Hag saw before. No, him signing Anthony, who's not performing, but does perform defensively, but can't cross with his right foot apparently, is also his fault. But us wasting a summer finding trying to sign the young is not his. So it's a bit 50-50 because in reality, if Ten Hag, let's say Ten Hag had a full his full squad currently of whoever the players he had, like you had people like Terrell Malacia who could have come in for Luke Shaw, or you had bought, or you had a healthy Varane and a healthy Martinez, whatever. You had Amrabat, you had Kobe Manu, who was exceptional in the games that he came on and played as well as the games that he played in preseason. And I do believe Kobe Manu is the player that he really wants to play in that deep box to box type midfielder role. But unfortunately, he got injured due to a freak accident in a friendly. But I do believe if he has Varane, Martinez, uh, Wan Bissaka or Dal, depending on the opposition, and a left back, either Shaw, Malacia, Amrabat. Unfortunately, Mount, maybe Casemiro, Bruno, whoever. And I'm assuming that Haaland probably is still on like limited time. But let's say a healthy Haaland, somebody on the right wing, and Rashford. That is a top four quality team with Ten Hag's. And I do believe that team could play Ten Hag's playing style. I just think that United spend money, and you rightly said in such a way that you should not have spent, even if you bought Monk, you should not have bought him for that price. Monk at best was 40 million in the current market. And I think that's with no add-ons, because why are you having add-ons for Mount? I think that that's the reality. We should have had that other 25 million to sign somebody else, whether it was Tadibo in the defense, who we really could have needed because he's a ball playing centre back, or anybody right now we could have had in the centre back other than Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire
Mhm.
would have been brilliant. So I do believe that Ten Hag scouting, for me, it's like at its best, it's like a 7.5. Worst case scenario is like 5 point something. But the prices we pay for players causes us to not be able to buy that extra player that could be the difference between getting eight and getting four. So, but I do believe this 2 weeks break is absolutely necessary, and I hope that someone on the England team tells Harry Maguire to please leave in January. Like I would rather us lose. I would rather us get 10th, but Harry Maguire leave, than us get fifth because Harry Maguire was cheeks.
Funny enough,
And
Harry Maguire actually plays decently for England.
exactly,
I don't
exactly.
know how he does it. Like he just turns up for England, and when he comes to Manchester, I don't know what happens.
I think because England plays two defensive midfielders a lot, so it covers his
Ah,
lack
right,
of
right.
pace.
Hmm.
So I guess it's all about setup. You could, I mean, Ollie did it first season, and Maguire was good. You had two DMs, and you just. But I think Maguire. The problem with Maguire is that he's a confidence player. When you're not a natural athlete, you need to be confident in your skill to perform. And he had a rough season, followed by another rough season, and then the fans got on his back, and opposing
Yeah.
fans started roasting him. So there's no way back for him. I think he's just in it for the money at this stage, and that's why he didn't leave during this
Mhm.
transfer window.
I think the bright spot for Manchester United fans is that you did start poorly last season, and it's only now that your starting striker is back. And I do think he can be the player that employs Ten Hag's philosophy the best.
Yeah,
Because I mean, his pressing, the energy that he brought off the bench was very good in the Arsenal game.
He's
and
actually a lot stronger
he's
than
the
I
one
thought he
I'd be
was.
very scared of pressing because I'm sure no defender looks at Bruno or Rashford and be like, you know what, hide the ball, get rid of the ball. Bruno is coming. But the way the way Highland plays is like the way he presses, it's very aggressive, and I'm sure they feel threatened by that
I can safely
from a
say that
defender's
he's
perspective.
one 20-year-old foreign player that probably would not have an issue with the physicality of the Premier League because he seems to embrace
Hmm.
it. And he's actually a lot faster than people give him credit for. And I don't think Gabriel expected to be put under that level of pressure by a player who's now playing for the first time because Gabriel is not a small centre back by any stretch of the imagination. That is a large centre back. That is a centre back that could deck you if he wanted to. And the fact that Harland was scrapping with him like that, I
Hmm.
actually would have been a bit more interested in seeing him go up against Saliba because that's an interesting centre back pairing in the sense that Saliba is your more Rio Ferdinand type. You're more of the finesse centre back. He's going to play a whole game and his shots are not going to get nasty because he doesn't even need to tackle you. He's just going to pick your pocket. But
Yeah.
um, I would be more interested in seeing him trying to impose his will against a centre back like that because going forward, you'll have to go up against uh, a lot of centre backs like that. But I'm interested in seeing him. I do believe this international break is good for him. He hopefully gets some reps and he comes back solid. But Martial cannot start another game for us. Even if Harland only plays 60 minutes and you bring on Garnacho and you put him up top, anybody other than Martial, because Martial was probably the worst player in that first. Um,
Yeah.
he plays like if he has no energy. But speaking of people that may not play for United again, how do you feel about Sancho's comments as a non-United fan?
Honestly, I think Ten Hag was a bit wrong to single out the player like that publicly. I think it's something that you should handle in-house, so to speak.
Hmm.
If a player isn't performing well, you speak to the player, you speak to the management, you speak to whoever
Hmm.
inside of the club. You need to resolve that. You don't speak to the media
Hmm.
about one of your players like that. So I think Sancho has the right, in a sense, to come out and speak his truth.
Hmm.
However, from the sense of performances, I can understand to a certain degree as to why Ten Hag he's lost favor because I can't
Hmm.
think of any standout performances Sancho has had since coming to United.
Hmm.
To be honest, like he has had some good performances, but
It's not
when it comes to standout
Dortmund level.
performances, yeah, he hasn't been that great. So maybe in training he isn't, showing the right
Energy
intensity, the
or
right
intensity. Yeah.
effort. He hasn't been performing as well as Anthony, which I find very difficult to believe.
In
But
terms of training and intensity, I think Anthony is generally an intense person, clearly.
mhm,
So maybe that's the
yeah,
case.
but in terms of performing better, in training, uh, maybe in the head-to-heads that they have, the practice
Yeah,
sessions where they may run a game or two. I don't see could it be any worse than how Anthony is playing right now? So it must be something with attitude as to why Ten Hag isn't playing him, or it could be just favoritism. Who knows?
true.
But I do think Ten Hag was wrong to publicly criticize the player.
I mean, just to add context, this was Ten Hag was asked by a reporter why Sancho was not in the squad, and he said that he was not satisfied with his training during the weekend. That at Manchester United, you need to strive for high standards week in, week out. Now, generally, let's say Ten Hag had said that about somebody like Luke Shaw. I probably would have been like, yeah, that's a bit uncalled for because clearly Luke Shaw, whether or not you think he's a good player or not, has been very professional in his career in terms of he's never been in any scandals. He always shows up at training, etc., etc. Sancho now last season had mental health issues, and Ten Hag definitely protected him from the media by saying, Sancho needs time. He gave him the time, and when he came back, he sent him to the Netherlands to train or whatever. So I do believe it's probably a case where Ten Hag is probably at his wits end with Sancho. But
Mhm.
what I would say is there have been managers in the past, like Pep, who've called out the fitness of their players in public, and Mourinho notoriously used to blame players for defeats. I would say that it would cause potential rifts with players, but and I don't necessarily think that Sir Alex would have done something like that, but everybody's not Sir Alex. I personally would not do something like that. I wouldn't say that he's wrong, but he probably could have lied and not told the media the truth. But at the end of the day, Ten Hag is Sanchez is a professional footballer, and his job is to train hard and play to the best of your
I mean,
ability on the day.
referencing those managers though is a bit I don't know, but each one of those managers have won at the highest level. Ten Hag hasn't. So I guess you they could have attested to their pedigree even when they called out their players. But Ten Hag doesn't have the trophies to back his. So you can't just go around throwing blame at players like that.
That's true, but at the end of the day, when you hire a manager, you hire them to manage. And regardless of the pedigree, whenever Sir Alex came to United, he did not have the pedigree that he had when he left. But I'm sure he would have demanded a
Mm-hmm.
certain level of respect from the players. And
True.
I think it's a matter of character as well. Because as much as, let's say, Ten Hag has not won anything at the highest level, maybe a top four league or the Champions League or something like that. Neither has Sancho. And you might
Mm-hmm.
want to argue that
Yeah,
Sancho is even a less accomplished player versus Ten Hag, who has,
being a manager. Mm-hmm.
in terms of his managerial career success thus far. And and the thing is, if you look at the players in the team, like Rashford got dropped, and they asked Ten Hag why he was dropped, and he said because he was late. And
He
Rashford
was
came into
late.
the
Yeah.
media and said that, well, the man just sets rules, and he knew that he would have been dropped the moment that he was late. I feel like a professional football player knows to respect the manager regardless of who they are. It's a difference if Ronaldo and Ten Hag has a problem. Fine, that's Cristiano
Mm-hmm.
Ronaldo. But you as an upcoming player who really is on the edge should probably toe the line a bit more, maybe. However, what I will say is though, the one thing about his comment is that the insinuation was that Ten Hag did not drop him because of training. Personally, I don't have a if it's true that Ten Hag dropped him from training, I don't have a problem with Ten Hag calling out Sancho for being unfit or not training well. Fine. I would have a problem though if Sancho feels as though he's not being selected for some odd reason, as you suggested, maybe favoritism. No, personally, I wouldn't select Sancho either, but I wouldn't necessarily start Anthony either. So it's a case where I believe that a player like Pellistri, who is always in the squad, he must be training well, should probably get a chance on the wing because one, he definitely crosses better than Anthony with his right foot because he is a right footer. And two, every time he comes on, he always beats the man that Anthony has been failing to beat despite all the tricks that Anthony clearly knows from the YouTube videos, but has not been able to apply.
Mm-hmm.
So I do believe
Yeah.
there's a possibility that either Ten Hag plays Anthony because of something we don't see, or he's loyal to him due to the fact of how loyal Anthony was to him when he said, if you ever need me, call me. And when he called him, he came to United. So I don't know. I hope that's not the case, but I personally would not be playing Anthony or Sancho as starters based on how they've performed for the past how many games, not just this season, but from the back end of last season. So that's a bit of a conundrum.
You actually haven't seen Sancho in a while though, so I can't attest to his level right now.
I mean, we
But
saw him
like you
off
rightly
the bench
said,
against someone these teams that we played. He came off the bench, but he has not started to the
it
season.
was a friendly or something, or
No,
it was an
no,
actual game.
yeah, he played against He played against Tottenham, I believe.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Oh, I actually didn't get to see that game. So,
yeah, he played against Tottenham.
but like you rightly said, given his performances, he's probably not deserving of the start. But like I said, as a manager, I think you need to be careful with your words when dealing with certain players.
Yeah,
You should know your players. That
yeah,
so with
you're
Rashford, you could
you're
probably
correct.
say, listen, Rashford was late, and Rashford would be okay to respond to the media in a positive way, in a positive
Hmm.
way. But a player like Sancho, no, you know of his history.
Yeah, he's clearly a bit
You should know
sensitive.
better when dealing with him.
Yeah, I agree with that. That is actually something I agree with 100%. When it comes to managing players, man, management is as important as tactics. And
Hmm.
as you rightly said, Luke Shaw used to be bashed in the media all the time by Jose Mourinho, and he never actually came out and responded. He just, took it because that's the manager. But another
Hmm.
player would have probably thrown a tantrum or something. So I guess that's true, and I would agree. But I'm interested to see how things move forward. I'm not for selling Sancho. I wouldn't give up on him just yet.
Hmm.
But
Same.
we also don't have the squad depth anyway. So I would be interested in seeing how things go forward. I think this is one of those you just need to sit down with the player. The manager needs to sit down with the player needs to sit
Yeah.
down with the manager and just talk things out and move forward.
Hmm.
Because it really wasn't the
Speak.
worst statement ever.
Yeah. I think it's something that can be started in house.
Yeah.
But speaking of comments made by managers, what do you think of Louis van Gaal's comments on the World Cup?
Um. Well, I can't remember his exact words. I mean, you could remind me, but I remember the general gist of the comments.
Just to give context, so Van Gaal said basically that he feels that the World Cup was rigged for Argentina to win.
Yeah.
That was the essence of it.
Okay. So I'll give just a general take before stating my opinion, and then I'll hand it over
Yeah.
to you. Well, I do believe that a lot of Ronaldo fans are I could say Messi haters as well as non-Argentina fans, and I would assume Netherlands fans as well after that specific game probably had a feeling of that there were some at least some poor calls that went in favor of Argentina, and worst case scenario that it was rigged. However, a statement coming from a past player, a pundit of good repute, or a manager of Van Gaal's caliber, who's a Champions League winning manager, a manager with great pedigree, um, does carry a lot more weight and controversy than fans online. But over to you. Let me hear what your opinion is.
I love how you didn't give your opinion at all. But
No,
anyway.
I will. I will in the end. I will in the end.
All right. So first of all, I'm not a Messi hater. I'm a Ronaldo fan, but I also
Mm-hmm.
love Messi almost as much.
Mm-hmm.
Do I believe the World Cup was rigged? Definitely not. However, I do feel that there were some incidents of incompetence by the referees. So we can
Mm-hmm.
debate about the Netherlands game all we want. I'll leave that alone. The
Mm-hmm.
one that I like to focus on mainly was the final against France. Di
Mm-hmm.
Maria had a penalty. No, I thought it was a penalty. It's a bit soft, but I do
Mm-hmm.
think it was a penalty. However, if
Mm-hmm.
you're going to give that, I
Mm-hmm.
do think you need to give the foul on Thuram at the end as well, where
Okay.
there was clear contact. People said he dived, but there was
Both were
contact.
dives. Yeah.
There was contact
Contact that led to
initially.
a
There
reaction by
was
the player.
contact that led to the reaction, and you've played football and you know the saying, the unspoken saying that as a striker, if you get hit, you go down in the box.
Yeah.
And players have been doing that forever. So I think if you give the first penalty for Di Maria, You should
All
definitely
things
give the
being
one for
equal.
Turam.
Yeah.
And with that being, I think it's a different game from there. But that's the only comment I'll make on my stance of the World Cup. I don't think it was rigged because I felt like, teams were given penalties the same way Argentina was given as long as they won them, except for that one incident. And I think it was the semifinals against Croatia. There was
Mm,
a suspect call as well with Livakovic. I don't know if
mm,
I'm pronouncing the name correctly, but the Croatian goalkeeper, I think he planted himself and Alvarez collided into him after, and they gave that as the penalty. And I thought that one was a bit suspect, but those were the two cases for me that I felt that the referee's incompetence costed the other team. Not so much the Croatia game because Argentina did score more goals after,
mhm,
but definitely for that France final. And that's a moment that I will always remember, like at the back of my head. Like I said, I was happy for Messi to win his first World Cup. I
mhm,
thought at least one of the goats should get a World Cup,
mhm,
and him having the World Cup is great and all. But thinking about that one moment, thinking about what could have happened, it taints it a bit for me.
mhm.
I know Messi fans may like once we start getting more viewers, the Messi fans would probably start crucifying me for this take, but
Mhm.
that's my stance on it.
Well, here I will just add some further context before I give my take. First of all, I think the reason why people even have these opinions is because they misinterpret what match fixing and game fixing is.
Hmm.
Most times, match fixing is not about fixing the result. It's more about fixing things within the game that you could bet on. Like, okay, the bet would be that if Haaland plays, he subbed on before the 65th minute in the Manchester United Arsenal game. So then you might pay the manager to ensure that this player subbed on or
Yeah.
what was the last thing you heard from me?
I'm now hearing you back. The last thing was you went saying the manager subbing on the
Yeah, okay, the manager subbing on play before the 65th minute. Then okay, you place your bet and you would say that okay, this
Mhm.
player is gonna be subbed on before this time. Or in cricket, the bet would be uh Jerome Taylor is going to bowl five whites today, and then you pay the player to bowl those five whites or something like that. Now, these
Mhm.
things may affect the result of the game, but there's no guarantee that they will. There's no guarantee
Yeah.
that because Jerome Taylor bowls five whites, that his team will lose or win. So the only way the World Cup could have been fixed is if every player or a large portion of the players on the losing team was actually actively aware because for example if we were to look at the penalty call that you referenced in the final, you saying that okay, the sequence which led to the penalty call um for Di Maria, that sequence was how did the referees plan that, or were they just waiting for the moment of of slightest contact to call? But
I don't
the
I,
but one thing
I
I
I
would
don't think the refs were waiting for anything. I just think they made bad calls with
exactly.
regards to the two
That
penalties.
that's
Yeah.
what I'm going at. I think they made bad and inconsistent calls. However, the finals game is not a game that I actually remember for poor refereeing. The only game I think
I
that
think they got it right for the most part, to be
yeah,
honest.
the
But
game
it's
that I
just
think
the
was
discrepancy
bizarre.
between those two calls, like the it's a bit controversial in my opinion.
But I think the game that was bizarre and probably why Van Gaal made his comment was actually the Netherlands game because
Hmm.
ignoring every other play in that game, when is it a Kuna or whatever his name is, kick the ball into the bench of the Netherlands
Hmm.
team
Yeah,
in any football game, that's a red card. If you're
that's a red
playing
card.
on the 15 Pee Wee football at 9, or if you're
Hmm.
playing in the World Cup final, that is a red card. And I think what I would say though about that game is this, right? In that game, the Netherlands should have lost objectively. The Netherlands
Hmm.
were very bad in that game for like 90 minutes until those two goals scored by some miracles. But in reality, if that game did if the Argentine didn't go so close to losing that game, I don't think that game would have even been remembered for that missed call. But because the game ended up being close, the call was significant because if the game ended 2-2 in regulation, if at 2-2 there was 10 versus 11 when Netherlands was clearly tired, they probably could have gone on to win that game. So I think that's probably the worst call I've seen in football for a very long time. But what I will say is that game also had instances where players from the Netherlands could have probably have been sent off. The thing that makes it bad is that Denzel Dumfries was actually sent off during the penalty shootout for talking, even though a player was not sent off for kicking the ball into the bench of the opposing team on purpose. So it's a case where that game definitely had inconsistencies, but I do not
That
believe
game
that.
definitely, emotions were definitely running high for that game, but I think
Yeah,
most of the Netherlands players actually got more heated after that red card wasn't issued.
yeah, than before. I think the
Granted, it
referee
was a
lost
heated
control of
moment
the
that
game
led to
after.
the sequence with Acuna kicking the ball into the bench,
Yeah, there was a
but
tackle
after
before
that,
that
I
I
felt
believe
like
was
it
given a
just
yellow.
went to another level.
Yeah, it's and the Netherlands is a team that in the past have been known to go off the edge when it comes to like if they feel like the game is being played dirty, they will go down in the trenches with you. And Argentina is not a team that's above playing dirty football as well. But
Yeah.
I do agree that that was a completely erroneous call. The call in the World Cup final is a bit more inconsistent, sure, but it's like I guess I could live with it. But I will never agree that that was not a red. And I think
Hmm.
sometimes referees are afraid to be the reason that a player or a team did not win. I don't think it's a case that they sit and they think, I
Yeah.
want Messi to win. But I think sometimes you take into consideration that if I give this player red, like I would be the story or the reason why
Hmm.
XYZ did not happen. But referees make mistakes and referees are not perfect. That does not mean they're fixing. Some referees are just not competent or as good at their job as other referees. The same way every commentator is not fit to jury. It's the same way every referee will not perform at that level. So for every Ronaldo, there's a Danny Drinkwater. So there's the Danny Drinkwater for referees, and that's just how it happens. I don't believe it was rigged, but the cards did fall fortunately for Messi in a few moments in the World Cup. And
Yeah.
does that diminish it? Maybe it puts a slight, hmm, well, you
But
won,
me
but
personally,
but
even
it does
as
not
like,
diminish it in my mind because every
mhm,
tournament that you play in history, you will say, yeah, that team got a few favorable calls that allowed them to get where they were. It doesn't mean that they fixed it. Fortune usually favors the brave, and sometimes when it's your time, it's just your
mhm,
time.
yeah, definitely. However, for me, I'll still always remember the call or the no call rather against France, and it's just in the back of my mind of like what could have happened,
Hmm.
especially especially how Mbappe was playing in the later stages of the game.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But I have a question for you. What do you think the French national team remembers more, that no call or the save at the end?
Probably the save, to be honest, because the save it was almost a sure goal until Martinez made that great save.
Yeah, because he shot it the way he should shoot it. So
I think with the penalty, right? I think everybody thinks, it's a soft call if you get the call.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, Di Maria was fortunate to get that call.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Dembele is to blame at all for his positioning though on the penalty?
I think I don't know what more you could do in a defense from a defensive standpoint, especially when the player's in front of you, and then you come back, you're running full speed, both of you. You're bound to, I guess, make contact. I don't really blame Dembele, to be honest. It's nothing you can do in that situation, I think.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. So I mean, going out from there, I would say closing that I don't think that it was a rigged tournament, but did Argentina get some fortunate calls? Yeah. Um,
Hmm.
but I do believe the teams that they played had ample opportunity to knock them out, and I actually think it's quite amazing that they managed to win that tournament. Given, I mean,
In your opinion, though, do you think Messi had a better tournament than Mbappe?
No, not. I don't even think it's comparable.
I
Messi had a good, an above average tournament. Maybe
Mhm,
even, let's say, a very good tournament. But Mbappe had a great tournament and an
mhm.
all time great.
In my opinion, I don't think I actually think Messi had the second best performance, but Mbappe was just on another. You could see that he was the engine for that France team.
Yeah, I
Well,
actually,
apart from
after,
apart from Griezmann had a very great tournament.
yeah, he had a lot
He
of,
was the one running the midfield and everything,
yeah,
but Mbappe was the one, providing the output that the team needed at the end of the day.
yep. And,
And without him, they just look lost. They just look lost.
I I actually think that when after that tournament wrapped, I was convinced that Mbappe was the best player in the world. But I mean,
Yeah,
of course,
and that's why I didn't
obviously,
understand Messi getting the golden ball. I guess it just it was the icing on the cake for him winning the
I
World
guess
Cup.
too, it has to do with
Let's
the fact that
just give
he
him the
won.
golden ball. And I do think for most of that game he was better than Mbappe.
Yeah, Mbappe
But
actually had a quiet game until
yeah,
late on, but
I would go so far as to say he was poor for most of that game until he scored those two penalties and that amazing volley to tie the game
you see, the
at
thing
the
is,
end.
with players like Mbappe, they only need one
Hmm.
moment of break.
Yeah,
It was
agreed.
actually a play at the end of the game when he dribbled two Argentina players,
Hmm.
and the third
Yeah,
got, I believe it was uh the guy from Chelsea,
Enzo,
uh, Enzo Fernandez, that got a vital touch. That sequence
yeah,
there was like showing you how
it was
great
world
Mbappe
class.
truly
It
is, because
was,
he was moving
yeah,
past them like if they weren't international players. And I think if he had passed Enzo Fernandez, that would have been the game. Like,
yeah.
there would have been no stopping him. But I don't know. He had an amazing tournament from his matchup with Kyle Walker. The game against Monaco versus Hakimi. I think he went up against the best players, the
Yeah, at
best
the position,
defenders
the best
at the
right
position.
backs.
Yeah. So his tournament, it was like, yeah. Am I better than? Is there anybody that could truly stop me? And even though Argentina kept him quiet for so long, he still ended up scoring 3 goals and in the shootout. So it's like, imagine a player had a poor game and he scored a hat trick. So,
Yeah,
but I do agree that I do believe they probably gave the golden ball to Messi because he won the tournament. And at the end of the day, history, the spoils go to the winner.
his history
So
remembers the victors, you would
yeah,
say.
so yeah, history remembers the victors. But
They probably won't remember the game against the Netherlands. They won't remember the controversial penalties, the no calls, things like that.
uh,
But at the end of the day, Messi has his World Cup,
true.
and to many, he is, officially cemented as the greatest of all time.
Well,
Personally, not for me, but for people.
Yeah, I mean, I would never fault anybody for saying that. Given his resume, it's hard to.
Same, same. Like if anyone comes to me and says, "I think Lionel Messi is the greatest player of all time," fair, like that's fair. But I may not agree, but
Yeah,
I understand the argument
yeah,
any day of the week.
it's completely rational, but it is what it is really. But I feel like one thing I always wonder is what would the football landscape have been if Mbappe had won two World Cups before 25 and Messi had not?
That's
It would have been interesting. But I guess this is probably the best outcome in terms of fairy tales because Mbappe already has a World Cup and he could probably
yeah.
win another one given how young the last French team is. And I actually think this French team is going to be better next time around because they had a lot of inexperienced players out
If
there.
Mbappe wins the Euros, the upcoming Euros, I
Yeah.
would say that he has a better international legacy than Messi and Ronaldo already.
Well, that would be a guarantee because I mean, with Messi is a bit questionable because Messi has the Copa America, but I feel like people don't rate Copa America as highly as they rate uh
The Copa America
Euros.
like in my opinion, I feel like the Nations League even
Mm.
has been a bit more competitive than the Copa because apart from Brazil and Argentina these days, like who's the next best team?
There
Maybe
was a
Uruguay.
period, yeah, there was a period of time
Uruguay, I
where,
do believe is a great up and coming team with Valverde, Araujo,
yeah,
Darwin, Ugarte, those guys. But as of right
yeah.
now,
I would say that that in the past there was a period of time which Chile had started
yeah,
playing really well,
yeah,
and I think they had won one or two Copa Americas. But the problem with Copa America is, as you rightly pointed out, there are only three truly great Copa America teams, and that
mhm,
and because there are only three World Cup winning Copa America teams, and that would be Uruguay, who hasn't won in a while.
yeah,
Argentina, the reigning champions, and Brazil, who has the most World Cups. So it's a bit one-sided. While France, who was the World Cup champions, did not even make it out to the quarters last time around, and then they went to the semis. So it
yeah.
bolsters the reputation of the Euros because Italy won the Euros and then they make it to the World Cup. So it's very competitive. It's more competitive. I mean, people would always point out that teams like Lithuania and these teams are in the Euros, but
Yeah.
on average, though, Portugal is probably a better side than or the equivalent to almost all the Copa America teams. Even though you might say, okay, Brazil might be better on the day and Argentina, the
Mhm.
World Cup winners, but a
Yeah.
team like Portugal could probably beat any Copa America team
On a given day,
on a given day.
like I do think it's a shame that now we're seeing like great Portuguese players like at almost every position.
Hmm.
Because now Ronaldo has gotten older. I just can't help but think if he had these players in his prime.
Yeah, yeah. So, but speaking of Ronaldo, even though this was not on our topic of discussion, do you think it's time that Ronaldo takes a more backseat role, not necessarily no longer play for Portugal, but instead of starting, that you allow players like Ramos and so on to start instead, because there's still players like Rafael Leao who are coming off the bench for
Mm,
Portugal.
in my opinion, I still think Ronaldo is capable of being, even at his age, he's capable of being one of the best goal scorers in the world.
Hmm.
Um, like just being that front man as a striker. And I don't think Portugal's depth at striker isn't, you know, too good. I mean, you have Jota, you have Gonzalo Ramos, but Jota
Hmm.
is more of a left wing, and
Hmm.
Ramos, I still he had that hat trick in the World Cup that led to him benching Ronaldo in the game against Morocco,
Hmm.
but he hasn't really done much since then. I'd still take Ronaldo on his day over any of them to start at striker. With regards to Lair, he should definitely be the starting left wing right now. That should be
Mhm.
no doubt. As for the right wing, there are players that can play there as well.
So
But
what
for
about someone
striker,
like Felix? Where does he fit in that
Felix
front?
Felix isn't really a striker either. In terms of strike, I think Portugal has like true strikers. They have Antonio Silva. I can't remember if that's his first name, but Silva, and they have Ramos. Those are the two on the top of my head who have made the Portuguese team in the past. And they have
Mm-hmm.
Ronaldo. So I still think Ronaldo is better in this Portugal system than either of the two of them. I think he's still the better player.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as long as Ronaldo is the best player in the position, he should start.
Mm-hmm.
You may want to look at games here and there to develop the talent of those younger players, but I think for the big games
Mm-hmm.
you still have to go Ronaldo in the starting lineup.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I don't really have any disagreements on that. So from here we were still supposed to discuss the fact that Liverpool is undefeated. City is clearly going to win the league again,
Chelsea still
uh
Banta club.
and Chelsea is. Why do you think that Chelsea is not winning games?
I honestly don't see a system for Chelsea right now. Like, what are they doing? Like, what's their philosophy? At the end of the day, we know at least Man U, they're going to press and try to play you on the counter. We know Liverpool's main bread and butter is the Gegan press. And,
Mm,
City is possession based football with the inverted fullbacks. And
mm,
Pep just changes. Pep is capable of changing tactics whenever it suits the team
mm,
depending on the team they face. Arteta has been shown to do it to a lesser extent, but with Chelsea, I don't see the direction they're going for.
mm,
What I can say is Nicholas Jackson, he has been getting into positions to score,
mm.
but he just can't seem to find the back of the net, especially in that Forest game. I would say like if you check his heat map, he's been getting into all of the positions, but that end product leaves much to be desired.
True. I mean, do you think that it would have been different if Nkuku wasn't injured?
So it may have been a bit better, but like I said, if you don't have a clear philosophy of how you want to play, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that yet, I don't think Pochettino like has his ideal lineup right now.
Okay.
So he needs to have his set starting lineup and then maybe you work out the kinks from there.
Okay. So
But
okay, go on, go on.
no, yeah, that's basically my point. Like, he needs to actually have the lineup in place where you work out the kinks, especially for this young and rebuilding team. There are bound to be, some um kinks along the way which you need to try and iron out. But yeah, we haven't seen them do that just yet.
Okay. So last question on Chelsea. Given the time that Graham Potter was given, how long, and Thomas Tuchel as well, who probably should have never been sacked. How long do you think they will give Pochettino to iron out these kinks?
I think at this point you need to at least give him the season, give him a full season, maybe even two, because who's the next manager? Who are you going to bring in?
Well, there's always Nagelsmann or
Then Nagelsmann reject the project, or was that PSG? I
no,
think
you
I,
rejected
I,
PSG
I,
and
I, I,
Tottenham.
no, I think Chelsea tried to get him as well.
I
I
can't
need to
remember
check back,
exactly.
but
Yeah.
Nagelsmann isn't going to come to a project that's now rebuilding. I think that's what we've seen from him rejecting PSG and Tottenham.
Hmm.
Maybe Chelsea is a bigger club, and maybe he'll be more attracted to the idea of managing a team like Chelsea. But I don't see him coming to a rebuilding team.
Well, Chelsea is proof that no matter how no matter how successful you are, it could turn around in a heartbeat because they were the when did they win the Champions League? 2020 or
2021, 2021.
2021? Yeah, 2020 was Bayern Munich. Yeah, they went from Champions League champions of Europe to um Tuchel being sacked in early 2022, and then now you're here in 2023, starting the season, and you're losing games. So I guess the same way a club could turn around and turn around their fortunes is the same way that you could turn
Yeah.
and to to something
I
much
do
much
think that
worse.
run that they had in 2021 was very lucky, not to take away from anything that they were able to accomplish,
Hmm.
but um if you look at who they played in the semifinals, they played an injured Real Madrid team who were
Hmm.
missing a lot of their starters. And in the final, it was I don't understand the tactics by Pep in that finals to play Gundogan as a defensive midfielder. But yeah, that definitely costed City that day. So, but not to take away from how well Kante played that season, the tactical brilliance by Tuchel
Hmm.
and Mount was great that season.
As
Havertz
well,
was
yeah,
good in the final, scoring that goal.
yeah.
But yeah, after that, it was a bit downhill. Even in 2022, I don't think they were particularly bad either
Hmm.
because
No, not really.
they did push Real Madrid in the second leg at the Bernabeu.
Yeah.
So I do think sacking Tuchel was a big mistake, definitely.
Yeah, because I believe the Tuchel had the team that he wanted, and that's something
Hmm.
that that's a manager's dream. Even if you have a rough start, if you have the team that you want,
Yeah.
you will have that confidence in yourself to rebound. So speaking of rebounding, do you think that Newcastle will be able to rebound? And how long do you think Newcastle's owners will stick by Eddie Howe, or do you think they'll try to bring in a big name manager since they're the
I
new?
honestly don't. I think Eddie Howe's job for now is a bit secure. I wouldn't panic just yet, to
Hmm.
be honest. And I think there's a lot more of the season to go on.
Hmm.
So I don't see the need to push the panic button with Newcastle just yet. I know they would be aiming for that European spot again,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it was a tough loss to Brighton.
Yeah.
But like I said, these games happen in the Premier League. I do think it's a losing streak now. They're definitely struggling against top teams, but I think you need to judge them over the course of an entire season to see their direction from there.
Yeah, true, true.
It's a bit too early in the season to call.
Yeah,
I don't put much weight in a fixture this early, to be honest.
yeah, I
Especially
usually,
for a rebuilding team like Newcastle
yeah,
and for a young team like Brighton as well.
yeah, I would usually say give it at least 5 games before you start thinking, well, maybe we
Hmm.
probably need to change something in terms of player
Yeah.
personnel. But there's one major thing that we forgot to discuss. Speaking of Newcastle's draw, how do you feel about the Champions League draws so far?
Mm, I don't remember every single bracket, but
Yeah,
the one that stands out to me is the group with PSG and Dortmund.
and
Who are the other
Newcastle,
teams as well?
Newcastle,
Newcastle, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So that's a group to look at,
I
definitely.
I'm trying to remember if AC Milan is also in that group.
Mm, maybe is it AC or Inter?
Um, I'm not sure, but I remember the time I thought that Newcastle was surely going home, but Newcastle, AC Milan is in that group as well.
Yeah,
So
it's AC Milan. Hmm.
So yes, you have Group A, which is Bayern, Manchester United, Copenhagen, and Galatasaray. Which in I would like to say I wouldn't. It's not beyond the realm of possibility that Manchester United would not make it out of this group, and that's because Galatasaray is a team that has such a strong home support that I don't necessarily
Yeah.
expect us to win away. But we will see what happens, and of course, Bayern is Bayern. So the Group B is actually a very easy group for both Sevilla and Arsenal, I would think, unless PSV has.
PSV PSV
Uh,
was a great team last season, to be fair.
yeah,
They could cause problems.
but I think that both
Yeah.
Sevilla and Arsenal should be capable of handling that. Napoli, how do you feel about Napoli, Real, uh,
I
Braga, and Union
definitely
Berlin?
see, like, especially if we still have our injury crisis, if Vinny isn't back for the game.
Mhm.
I do see maybe one of these teams taking points off of us, maybe a lot of them. But I do think we should top this group.
Do you think Napoli will be as potent with Cava and Osimhen this season?
Yeah, I think so. I think they still I think those two still pose a threat to any defense in Europe. They have gotten a bit worse with the loss of Kim, but
Mhm.
from a defensive standpoint, that is.
Yeah,
But their attack should definitely pose a threat.
and well, there's
And
Group
given
D.
how Real Madrid struggles to keep a clean sheet,
Uh huh.
that's very scary for us, I would say. They're not a team to be underestimated.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's Group D as well with Benfica, Inter,
Mm,
Salzburg, and
hmm.
Real
Sociedad.
Sociedad. This group is an interesting group. I would.
Personally, I always like to see Spanish teams do well,
Mhm.
apart from Barcelona. But I would say Inter tops this group and Benfica comes in second.
Okay, and so you think Salzburg is not making it out, or
Yeah,
Sociedad?
I don't think so.
Okay, well then there's Feyenoord, Atletico Madrid, Lazio, and Celtic.
Hmm. I'll go Atletico and Lazio.
Um, hmm.
And Group
Yeah,
F,
I'm
who's your
inclined to
pick?
agree with you. Group F.
Hmm.
Now, PSG is a disappointing team, but I do not expect them to get in the group stages.
I
So
actually love the moves they've made over the summer. I think
yeah,
this is like a football club rather than a
a
commercial
brand.
project.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
they look like an actual football club.
for me, I think PSG is going to top the group, and I think AC Milan is going to come out. But this
Mm,
is the group of death for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if
yeah,
Dortmund comes out,
I think
and who
I
knows
think
what
PSG is
Newcastle
my
will do.
lock to top the group as well.
Yeah,
I think second place is up for grabs, but I'm actually going to make a wild card pick, and I'll actually put my money on Newcastle to come in second.
aye, that's a hot pick.
Yeah,
All
given their
right.
current form, I know, but I
Yeah,
actually think they have the team to
to do it.
maybe scrap that second. Yeah.
Well, we will see. We will see. Tonali
Personally, I
back
hope
at
it doesn't happen
the
because
San
I would
Siro.
love to see Leao in the round of 16 and in as much Champions League games as possible.
Hmm.
But uh, Newcastle's my pick for now. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see. Well, I was gonna say I can't wait to see Dan Burn defend Rafael Leao, but he won't be on that wing anyway. But he won't be on that wing. So we have Group G with Man City, Leipzig, uh, whatever that team's name is, and Young Boys.
Crvena Zvezda. I won't even try.
Yeah,
But Man City first, I would say Leipzig second.
yeah, that's actually a very easy group. And of
Yeah.
course, Group H,
On paper, that is.
Barcelona, Porto, Shakhtar Donetsk, and Is that
You see,
Antwerp?
me personally, I have Porto topping this group and Shakhtar coming in second. Yeah, I'm
No.
just playing. This should be comfortable for Barca, I would say, on a
Who
level.
did go out in the group stage last season, but I don't think that's going to
Yeah,
happen
but
again.
there's no Bayern in this group, so
Yeah, I think
I
I would
think
expect them to top. It's
Porto
between.
may take points off of them. That wouldn't surprise me. But
eh, Yeah, I'm agree. I actually think the way the group is currently positioned is probably how it's going to
mm,
finish. Isn't there a?
Shakhtar is a dangerous team as well.
Yeah.
We played them in the past, and they always give us a run for our money.
In this current Champions League format, is there a best third place that goes sure, two best third place that goes sure, something like that? Or those are the
Um,
ones that go down to the Europa League?
I think I think is Europa League. I think they'll do like the third place thing.
Hmm.
Or they're supposed to change the format sometime next season, I believe.
Yeah, to
I can't
expand the
remember.
tournament.
I'm not sure about the rules for the new format as yet, but
Mhm.
they're supposed to incorporate some new rules at some point.
Okay,
And I
well,
think they will have the best third place teams.
okay, well, that would be a bit interesting. It's like wild cards. But is there
Yeah.
any other pertinent sporting topic you would like to discuss?
Nah, I think that's it for tonight.
Okay. Well, it was a pleasure having this conversation with you, and it was a pleasure for all those who tuned in
Yeah, man,
to
as always.
our longest ever podcast thus far. I hope you find the discussions both intriguing and thought provoking. My name's Dave Chappelle, and you had with you Chris, and we're signing off tonight. Goodbye and
Good
see you
night,
soon.
everyone, or a good day wherever you are in the world.
Yep.